My wife recently asked me, why would anyone have to sell their house if they have a 3% mortgage, even if interest rates are at 6%? Wouldn't they just keep it forever? And I said, yeah, unless they don't have a job or they're not able to afford their mortgage anymore because they've lost their job. So ultimately, what really matters is jobs and employment. In today's video, we are going to talk to you about who are the employers and jobs, where are the jobs, and what is the economy in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado. In fact, the BizWest publication, which is a great publication, by the way, if you're in the business community in Northern Colorado, which really services Boulder, Broomfield, up to north and up to Wyoming. Great publication, great networking events, but they just came out with their top employers, both public and private, as well as the fastest growing companies in the Northern Colorado area. Well, I should say the focus that we have is on Northern Colorado, and they looked at different tiers. Now, we are going to discuss different sections, different types of jobs and employment and sectors within the economy so that you know who are the employers in Northern Colorado. Because sometimes, whether that's voluntary or involuntary, if you move here, you might be working remotely, but you might have an opportunity if you're retired to go volunteer or go use your incredible assets and abilities and experience to help a smaller business in Northern Colorado. Or maybe you do need to make that income and well, your remote work opportunities are gone and you have to find somewhere here locally to work. Where are you going to work? That is what today's video is going to discuss. Now, my name is Patrick Soukup and this is the Living in Fort Collins YouTube channel where we've helped hundreds of families move to Northern Colorado. Now, if you're considering relocation, buying, selling, or investing in the area, give my team a call, text, or email, or scan this QR code and you'll lead to a link to jump on a Zoom intro call. We would love to be an asset on your team. Without any further delay, let's jump into today's video. Let's go. On our podcast, I had Darren Atterbury, who is a former city manager for the city of Fort Collins, and he made a comment that, hey Patrick, if anyone ever tells you that the backbone to Fort Collins economy is not CSU, make sure to correct them and let them know that CSU, Colorado State University, is in fact the backbone to the economy. And I would say that our public and educational sectors are hugely important to our economy and large employers in the area. Colorado State University, over 8,000 employed. University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, again, a very strong Division I institution. And then from there, you've got Front Range Community College, Ames Community College, and as well as the Poudre School District, Weld County RE4 and RE6 School District, and the Thompson Valley School District. All of those are in the educational sphere and are great employers, large employers in the area. And then you have the public sector as well. City of Fort Collins, City of Loveland, City of Greeley, Weld County, and Larimer County for our public sector employments. City of Fort Collins employs 2,500 employees. We had the city manager on there on our podcast. We've had people who've reached out to me and said, hey Patrick, is the City of Fort Collins a good place to work? And well, I've had the city manager, mayor, CFO, Chief Sustainability Officer, amongst many other people in the city staff on the podcast, and they all talk to me about what a great place the city of Fort Collins is to work and live. So it's definitely easy for me to tell them, yes, it's somewhere that if I had the opportunity or it made sense that I would absolutely consider, and the culture there is great. So education and public sectors is a huge employer in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado. And then number two, we've actually had a lot of retired individuals, retired couples, folks, partners, whoever, moving to the area. And one of the main things that they've rave about is the healthcare in Northern Colorado. Healthcare is a huge economy and industry for us. We've got UC Health, which is probably the absolute largest provider of health services in the area. You've got UC Health Poudre Valley, UC Health Greeley, UC Health Medical Center of the Rockies, McKee Medical Center, and then also we do have Banner Health and Kaiser Permanente. On top of that, the Orthopedic Spine Center of the Rockies is a great employer who has offices in Fort Collins, Loveland, and Greeley. Surgeons, doctors, very important place. And then on top of that, we've got Columbine Health, who Bob Wilson, who is now the CEO and owner of Columbine Health, has a great story where he was originally a janitor for the company when they just had one facility, senior living, and then he built it to tens of places, thousands of employees, in Northern Colorado for a lot of senior living, senior health facilities, rehabs, institutions. So we're a great healthcare institution here in Northern Colorado. If there are any specialists you need, they very well might be at one of those medical hospitals. In fact, the Medical Center of the Rockies just added a massive, massive addition to its facility, and it is one of the top ranked medical facilities in all of Colorado. And if we don't have this specialist, you can absolutely go down to Denver and they're gonna have all the specialists you need. Manufacturing and kind of heavy industry in Northern Colorado isn't necessarily something that you suspect or see or it's readily available. Even though our roots were in agriculture here in Fort Collins, we do have some manufacturers and larger players in different industries as well. We've got JBS USA, which is also Pilgrim's Pride, a publicly traded company, one of two in Northern Colorado, JBS and Woodward Governor. I should say one of two that have headquarters in the area. There are many publicly traded companies in the area that just don't have headquarters here, but have small operations and offshoots. Vestas Blades of America in Windsor. So if we get back on the clean energy bandwagon now or in the future, clean wind energy is being manufactured for the blades just to our neighbor to the southeast in Windsor. And then we've got OtterBox. OtterBox was kind of the darling of my high school days, early college days, where they were just explosive growth. I mean, it was, man, this is a great, great company, and it's still an absolutely great company. But they've had some problems. They've had some layoffs that they've had to happen, and I believe the new CEO is riding the ship, who is the son of the original founder. But they are the manufacturer of the phone cases, iPad cases, and they've kind of tried different places that they can, make an impact, leverage their systems, manufacturings, everything along those lines. But OtterBox is still a great employer in Northern Colorado. And then some other major players in the area are going to be Waterpik, kind of the water tooth flosser. They've got manufacturing here, and Durl, which is actually, they've got a presence here in Fort Collins and growing. They were just ranked the #1 disruptor, top 50 disruptor and they're a tech defense company. And they have a big presence, or they're starting to have a bigger presence here in Fort Collins. And then finally, Nutrien. Nutrien has over 500 employees in the Northern Colorado area, based out of Loveland, right near that Medical Center of the Rockies. And I've had two different friends who have ended up finding employment there. One voluntarily, who it was a great opportunity for them to jump different employments to Nutrien, and then the other one was involuntary, but it was one of the few high-paying opportunities for his specific expertise that he ended up finding employment for. So those are all of our kind of like heavy manufacturer and industry type players. And while finally, I wouldn't necessarily say this is manufacturing per se, it's a beverage producing. We are the microbrew capital of the United States, and I would say, yes, New Belgium is the king of that, but we also have Anheuser-Busch, which was a huge employer that came to Fort Collins many decades ago, but brought with it many opportunities for people for employment, high-paying jobs. And then, of course, it's grown from there. We've got about 26 breweries in Fort Collins, and it is a strong industry. It goes plus or minus, but I would say there are people that are moving to the area that maybe it's not necessarily the highest paying job, but maybe it's something that it's a passion of theirs and they would like to explore getting involved with and being a part of that community. Our next sector is tech and innovation. And I will say that Fort Collins is by no means a tech hub, but I will say with the advent or really adoption of artificial intelligence, we could see a lot of smaller companies leveraging that. CSU is a great innovation center. One of my good friends is the director of entrepreneurship there at CSU, and there are a lot of cool things that are being built and produced at CSU that might find a home here. But some of the companies that are in that tech and advancement kind of innovation area are going to be as follows. Madwire is a marketing company that is based here in Fort Collins, over 500 employees. We've had them on the podcast, and the CEO is definitely a Fort Collins kind of gung-ho individual and really likes bringing those high-paying jobs to the area. Ace Info Solutions, which is cybersecurity, AI. It is definitely a company that we're watching and seeing as far as growth and opportunities here in Northern Colorado. And to round out some of the kind of tech companies, we got Spire, environmentally clean, friendly. We've got Turbo Tenant, property management software. Ursa Major Technologies, which is actually a rocket building company in Berthoud. We've had 2 different clients and friends that have worked there, and I didn't even know that it existed. And so that's something that's really kind of cool that's just in our back door, building rockets here in Northern Colorado. And then finally, one of the only unicorns from my understanding is Bilgo, a payment processing platform that is here headquartered in Fort Collins. And then of course, we do have our kind of big dogs that are huge components and growth of Fort Collins decades ago, as far as Hewlett-Packard, Broadcom, Advanced Energy, Intel, Avago. We have got some really great players here in Northern Colorado that have been staples to the economy, who were the OG original high-paying job opportunities, and they're sticking around. And one thing that we're super excited about here in Fort Collins is Broadcom. A friend of mine who works as an engineer there is excited about one of the departments that's there is the chip building for all of these AIs that are being built. Fort Collins is a headquarters and a kind of a vanguard for that manufacturing. Now, one thing that Fort Collins benefits from, as well as the greater Northern Colorado region, is philanthropic donors, givers, nonprofits that people are really pouring into the area. One specifically is Bohemian Foundation, which is focused on arts and culture and building festivals and helping provide funding for a lot of different areas for the music, arts, and culture scene. The Music District, where it's affordable studios for musicians to go and perform or in practice, have studio space. On top of that, Habitat for Humanity, Catalyst Housing, the Weld County Food Bank, United Way of Larimer County, Neighbor to Neighbor. And these are just some of the nonprofit, philanthropic opportunities here in Northern Colorado. There are a lot of people who are moving here and maybe retired, who aren't necessarily looking for work, but would like to volunteer some of their time and expertise. And these are some great opportunities that you could explore if you are interested in that. Now, here's something that I'm super excited about. With the advent and adoption of all the AI, trades and entrepreneurship, I think, are some of the best opportunities for jobs and employment in the area. Some of the fastest growing companies, in fact, are in the trades: heating, plumbing, HVAC, and then of course some of these entrepreneurs who are building moving companies, fencing companies, accounting firms. There are plenty of opportunities for those that are wanting to build businesses here in the area. Whoever wants to buy a business has the opportunity to buy some of these kind of silver wave individuals that are tired, ready to get out, and want to sell to somebody who's excited to bring new life to their 40-year-old business venture. But if you're in the trades, here are some of them. Here are a couple to consider. IMS Heating and Air, $16.5 million revenue last year. Aggie Plumbing Services, $3 million in revenue. And then Front Range Roofing Systems. I'm not a huge roofer fan, but they brought $34 million last year in revenue. So if you're in the trades, Northern Colorado is a great opportunity to start a business, to join a business, but to get an opportunity to kind of veer away from some of that AI stuff that they can't necessarily do just yet. With all the construction here in Northern Colorado, construction and real estate development is a great opportunity. We've got developers like Hartford Homes that are a big developer here in the area. Good opportunity, growing company, good culture. McQuinney Companies, who aren't just Colorado based, they're national. They are focused in Colorado and specifically in Loveland. Centerra South that's being built that might house Hensel Phelps, who's a big contractor here in the area. And then finally, Martin Lind and Water Valley Company, who Windsor, Southeast Fort Collins, kind of Greeley area. Great developer and a lot of job opportunities there. There's a ton of development happening in the area, and those are just a few of the companies that you could consider kind of reaching out to and looking for work. Now, part of this publication that the BizWest had was some of the fastest growing companies. I will put a caveat here that the companies that are on this list are those that reported their information, were sought out, or volunteered their information. I will say that our company at Soukup Real Estate Services would actually be on one of these lists if we provided that information. But there are plenty of companies who keep that private, and there are plenty of companies that volunteer that information. But some of the fastest growing companies in Northern Colorado, and I'm going to read from the list so I don't miss it, are as follows. TCC Corp, 369% growth, $46 million revenue last year, a Greeley-based construction company. Retirement planning service, 204%, $2.5 million. Financial advisor. Kellison HOA and district management, 110% growth, $1.38 million in revenue. HOA management's a big deal in Fort Collins, Northern Colorado, and Colorado because there's now a regulatory board that requires people to be licensed in HOA management. So it's kind of a new industry in the last 5-10 years, and there's a lot of great opportunity there. Ensign Power Systems, and that's an aerospace industrial client type of 97% growth, $12.6 million in revenue. Schlosser Signs, this is full service sign design, fabrication, and installation. Ability Digital, this is a digital marketing agency, 105% growth, $1.3 million in revenue. And then finally, Collab Architecture, 85% growth. This is an architectural design for commercial and residential projects. So those are 8 fast growing companies in the area that if you kind of want to be at the ground level for some growth opportunities, bring those expertise to those specific companies, you absolutely can do that. Now the next section is small business. 99% of Colorado businesses are considered small businesses. So there's not a ton of, and that's, I think that's pretty consistent across a lot of different states and economies. So ultimately the big providers of jobs and security are small businesses. I run a small business. I employ a few people and I hope that they enjoy what they do. I hope that they enjoy their work. I'm not able to pay them the tons of monies that big corporations are or offer some of these huge bonuses or incentives or care packages, but some of the balancing that I can do is provide work from home, flexible work schedules, a very laid back culture, fun engagement. We go on company trips, we do parties and events and lunches and client events. And so those are some of the things that I hope outweigh some of the things that I can't necessarily offer or at least don't offer at this time. And that's the same for a lot of small businesses. So I will say, if you are engaged or want to build a small business, it is a great opportunity. Lots of people want to support you locally here in Colorado and Northern Colorado. And then finally, the world that we live in is, a remote work type of society. So if you move to the area and your question is where do people work? What if I get laid off from my job? Fortunately, yes, for a lot of the clients that we've worked with, they can find alternative jobs and opportunities that might not necessarily be local, but are similar pay and opportunity to what they were working with. But it's remote work for another company in a different state, different location. And again, Fort Collins is only about an hour from Denver. Now, if you're in Windsor, you're about 50 minutes. And if you're in Greeley, you're probably only about 40 minutes from DIA. So depending on where you are located or situated in Northern Colorado, if you have to remote work and you do have to go down to Denver for once a month or once every quarter to go to their headquarters that isn't in Colorado, it's not that far of a drive. And I will say there are plenty of people who are relocating to the area that are bringing with them good, strong, high-paying jobs. But if you don't have that, or if you're unfortunately released from that or voluntarily looking for other positions, those different sectors and industries are by no means an exhaustive list. There are plenty of different jobs, employers, opportunities in the area, but those are the sectors that drive the economy in Northern Colorado, and those are the employers. They employ some of the most people in the area. So that's probably where I would start. If you need more information or want additional information of the full list, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to send it to you so that you can kind of understand who are the largest employers in the area and maybe where you could explore, have plan B or C if plan A doesn't necessarily work out. I'd be happy to provide that to you. But hopefully this video has helped you understand who are the employers and where are people working for jobs here in Northern Colorado. Have a great day. Take care.